Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'm Kirti Sophia Purnachan, and in today's session we'll be learning about creative writing. Creative writing is all about using your imagination and creativity to express ideas and thoughts in a way which is personal to you. Quite simply, it's about adding your own flair to writing and going beyond the traditional boundaries of academics or other technical forms of literature. As the name suggests, creative writing is a form of writing that goes beyond the traditional realms of normal, professional, academic, or technical forms of writing. Instead, it encompasses a number of different genres and styles across a whole range of fields of both fictional and non fictional writing, storytelling, playwriting, poetry, prose, journalistic, and more. So, creative writing is something extremely different from the traditional form of writing, that is professional, academic, and technical forms, and all. These are different types of ways in which people write, but creative writing is extremely different from all these forms. And we could see that in creative writing, a person expresses his or her own flair through these writing, and a lot of imagination and creativity could be seen in these types of writing. And creative writing is mostly seen in you see fictional and non-fictional writing, especially plays, poetry, prose, uh, like that. In those genres we could see that creative writing is more seen. Though the definition of creative writing is kind of vague, it can, for the most part, be considered as any type of writing that is original and expressive of oneself. That is extremely important, because in creative writing, we could see that the work that a person writes will be original, and it is expressing himself or herself. Typically, it can be identified by an emphasis on narrative craft, focusing on elements such as character development, narrative and plot, infusing its structure with imagination, invention, and story. So, all these could be seen as one of the major things of a creative work. In this sense, creative writing can technically be considered any writing of contemporary, original composition. It's bound by no standard conventions and uses a whole range of elements in its craft. So, in creative writing, a person should write in an original and contemporary way, and it would be an expression of that person's self through that work. In an academic setting, creative writing is typically divided into fiction, poetry, script writing, and it focuses on writing in an original style not defined by pre existing structures and genres. So, a person who is writing something creatively has a freedom of his or her own to write in whatever style and in whatever way they want. Now we move on to the different types of creative writing. Creative writing comes in many forms, encompassing a number of genres and styles. There are lots of different types of creative writing which can be categorized as fiction or non-fiction. So let's see which are the most popular forms of creative writing, and they include biographies, fiction, which include novels, novellas, short stories, etc. Then we have speeches. The next one is poetry and spoken word. Then we have playwriting or script writing. And the last one is personal essays. Now let's see what makes a good piece of creative writing. As the very name suggests, creative writing is an imaginative process created by the individual with all their quirks and personality. So a person who writes something in a creative manner will have all his personality and whatever flaws and good things that the person has will be reflected in his creative work. Creative writing doesn't fit one set genre, and therefore there will never be an umbrella definition to describe the perfect piece. Just think about a Gothic short story and then compare it to the features of a great romantic poem by Wordsworth or Keats. They are so different, isn't it? The two works are so very different, and it wouldn't be unfair to judge them together. However, with that being said, there are a few general principles that you can follow to make your creative writing as strong as it can be by making it as authentic and true to you as possible. So, for that, the first thing that you have to keep in mind is that know your audience. All great stories begin with a target audience in mind because it's exactly what you need to know in order to really tailor your writing and connect with them. Therefore, any creative writer should begin their writing by plotting out exactly who they want to read their work. Once you have this in mind, your writing will naturally begin to take direction and flow in a way that seems appropriate to your audience. So, that is a very crucial point while you are beginning to write something creatively. The second point is write what you know. Quite often, the best stories are those which we can connect to and relate in one or another way to our own lives. Or there are stories which seem so authentic that you could imagine it to be about the writer's own life. Now, this doesn't mean that you quite literally have to write about your life, but drawing on knowledge you have about different elements of our lives to give your story some authenticity and more believability. So, the reader must feel that your work is relatable and it should have an element of believability in it, and the writer should write it in an authentic way. Moving on to the third point, creativity is key. Yes, creativity is one of the most important elements of creative writing. It's what sets you apart from other pieces of writing in your genre. Of course, this doesn't demand that you write a tale about a totally fantastical and mythical world with unique creatures, but simply you use your creativity to think a little outside the box and put a unique twist on things, using literary devices like metaphors, alliteration, and varied sentence structure to make your work unique and interesting. So these are things that the writer could use in that person's work, like using metaphors, alliteration, different sentence structure, unique theme, interesting plots, twist and turn in the story. All these would make your creative work different from the other works that already exist. The next one is push your imagination. One of the greatest things about creative writing is that there's no definition or rules on how to write. It is much more subjective genre and one which relies heavily on your own interpretations. Therefore, you should push your imagination to the limits to see what the end result could be. Some of the most interesting pieces of literature are thought provoking or make us question the writing or world around us. Where could your story take us? So, that is something that the writer should keep in mind. Where could I take my readers to? So, our imagination shouldn't have any boundaries. It should set yourself free, and that could be written in your expressed in your creative work, and the readers could enjoy in another world, and it could set a new rhythm to the lives of the reader. And the last point is plot a loose story arc. Despite the loose bounds of creative writing, it is still advisable to plot a loose story arc for any piece of literature you create. Story arcs are critical at giving your writing direction and purpose, also helping you to write the whole piece at a good pace and without writing any superfluous content or anything that would destroy the flow of your writing. Follow your story arc, and your writing will have a strong structure, pace, and direction, and it would keep your readers more engaged. So, if you are planning to write something creatively, try to plot a loose story arc to give you a direction on how to write it. So the story arc is kind of a route map through which the writer should move so that the creative work would be completed in a very unique manner. So that's all for today. I hope today's session was fruitful for you all. See you again in the next class. Bye bye.